It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
Since our founding, we've been revolutionizing hair removal with cutting-edge technology and a commitment to empowerment. The U-Like Air 3, launched in 2023, ushers in a new era of sapphire ice cooling technology, offering nearly painless hair reduction in just 3 weeks. Experience the future of hair removal today at ulike.com, because at Ulike, beauty is about looking and feeling good. That's ulike.com. Ulike. With Ease US, make studio quality voiceovers for your videos online in over 149 languages and dialects, featuring 468 natural AI voices. Customize the volume, mood, and pauses to perfectly match your content. Plus, capture high quality videos with no watermark. Record your screen, webcam, and voice, and save them instantly to your computer. Never been easier to create professional grade videos and voiceovers. Try it today at easeus.com. That's EASEUS.com. Ease US.
Just use AMP-Pace.
AMP-Pace.
It is the Pete Sousa Show, coming at you live from the 21st floor of the Alico building in Waco, Texas. So good to be with you. Pete will join us shortly. Pete is out in Oklahoma City getting ready to broadcast the Big 12 softball tournament. It's going to be awesome if you want to join Pete on ESPN Plus today and tomorrow to catch the Big 12 softball action. Sure, he'd love to talk to you there. We are presented, of course, by our good friends at Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers, D1 Dallas, Sikora Family Ford, Crawford Austin Properties, Extraco Banks, and how could I forget Slovaceks? Don't drive through West without stopping at Slovaceks. Tell them the Pete Sousa Show. I'm in my FC Dallas kit today. Lucho Acosta is the name on the back of the kit. He scored last night. Dallas won 3-1. We're going to talk a little MLS soccer later in the show with Garrett Melcer from FC Dallas. And here's the thing. If you're like, soccer's not my sport, I'm not into it, Garrett and I are going to try to convince you why you should give it a chance this summer. Stick around for that. Shehan Jeyarajah of CBS Sports will also join me shortly to talk a little Big 12 football. I have a proposal for Brett Yormark on how to improve scheduling in the Big 12. It's just a travesty that Baylor and Texas Tech won't be playing this fall. So stick with us for all of that. But first, I want to start today as a Dallas Cowboys fan reacting to the George Pickens trade. Dallas Cowboys trade a 2026 third-round pick as well as swapping a fifth for a sixth with the Steelers to acquire the wide receiver George Pickens, who is entering his last year in his rookie contract. First of all, just initial reaction, I love the trade for Dallas. This is an infinitely, chasm, leaps and bounds better move than swapping a fourth-round pick for Jonathan Mingo in the middle of the season this past fall. I think it's a great trade. Pickens can be a head case. This is known. He picks fights downfield. He's had some issues maybe in the locker room. I wonder, honestly, how this affects the desire of Aaron Rodgers to go play or not play for the Steelers. But I love the move. Remember, the Cowboys signed another head case wide receiver named Terrell Owens 19 years ago. That worked out really well for the team. T.O. was an outstanding Dallas Cowboy. I also think, personally, George Pickens, talent-wise, is probably closer to a what we would call like a wide receiver 1 than a wide receiver 2. The guy had over 1,000 yards 2 seasons ago, about 900 yards, missing some time last season with, by the way, horribly inconsistent quarterback play. Don't you dare look at what the Steelers have done at quarterback over the last 3 seasons. It's been a nightmare. But here's what I want to talk about with George Pickens. So the talking points on most shows around the country, I imagine, will revolve around Dak Prescott. Oh, good. Look, the Cowboys got Dak a weapon. But I think more than Dak, the reason I'm excited about George Pickens in particular is I think this move really helps CeeDee Lamb. Of course, Dak will benefit from having another great weapon at his disposal. But I think more than that, this move helps CeeDee Lamb. So let me break it down this way. In the NFL, this is really, really basic. I know there's nuances here, but stick with me. I think there's really 3 kinds of receivers in the NFL, 3 kind of molds of receiver. First of all, you have your traditional NFL wide receiver. Think of guys like Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson. I mentioned Terrell Owens earlier. I would say more recently guys like Mike Evans, Devontae Adams kind of fit into this role. These receivers are usually bigger. They're very physical, athletic, can get downfield, make contested catches, big play threat always, kind of your traditional wide receiver. Then you've got what I would kind of call your traditional slot receiver. And these are different kind of players, and we've seen greats come through at that position. Think about Wes Welker, or more recently like Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin kind of fit into this mold. They are the quicker players. They kind of make their living running strong routes, getting open in the kind of intermediate depths of the field, in the middle of the field, and making good catches from the slot. More and more, the NFL is actually evolving to where your number 1 receiver is your slot receiver. Think Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson. There's kind of that mold of NFL wide receiver. But then there's like a third mold. And I would say this has only emerged in the past decade or 2, and I'm going to call this the utility receiver. You've got your utility baseball players that can kind of play any position. This is the same concept, but for a receiver. And it's because these are receivers that can play inside or outside, but they're also invaluable as returners or ball carriers, rushing the football. Percy Harvin is the first, I would say, like big name that kind of made this work in the NFL, that style of player. And there's been a lot since. Deebo Samuel, Tavon Austin. Heck, a couple of guys like Ty Montgomery and Cordero Patterson were so good at being a utility receiver, they ended up just playing running back in the league. CeeDee Lamb is probably the best version of this we've seen yet in the NFL, the utility receiver position. He can play out wide. He can play in the slot. And really, he made himself invaluable early in his career as a punt returner and also carrying the football. In college as well, he's not a traditional wide receiver. He's what I would call like more of this utility player. And that's exactly why I think the George Pickens trade makes perfect sense for the Dallas Cowboys. Think about how CeeDee Lamb was used with Lincoln Riley's offense at Oklahoma, right? He was the utility player, while Hollywood Brown was the take the top off deep threat wide receiver. I was at AT&T Stadium in 2019 when Baylor played against Oklahoma, and CeeDee Lamb had a 71-yard touchdown reception, and all 71 of those yards came after the catch. It was a screen that the dude just took all the way to the house. The goal is to get CeeDee Lamb the ball and space to work, not necessarily to make him a big play threat downfield. And there might be no better big play threat downfield in the NFL than George Pickens. That's just true. So far in his career, Pickens is averaging 16.3 yards per reception, including a league-leading 18.1 yards per reception in 2023. And I want to show you this chart that I found on Twitter that was really helpful for helping me think about this. It might be hard to read unless you go full screen and zoom in there. But this is a chart where on the y-axis, you have yards per route run. Yards per route run. And then on the x-axis, you have the separation that someone is creating from the man covering them. And George Pickens is floating right there in the middle of the chart towards the top. There are only two receivers who averaged more yards per route run last season than Pickens, and that's Justin Jefferson and Jamison, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. And I can't read the chart. It's so small on my screen. Jamison Williams, Lions. They're the only two receivers that average more yards per reception last season than George Pickens. But here's the difference. Do you see how George Pickens is closer to that y-axis than the other two? That means that Justin Jefferson and Jamison Williams' yards per route run is boosted by the fact that they are just outrunning the man covering them. They're just faster than all the corners in the NFL. Pickens is not. What that means with Pickens in the center of that chart is that he is making a lot of these catches contested. He's not only getting downfield, he's not only getting open downfield, but what you're seeing in this graphic is that Pickens gets downfield, and then even if he's got a corner draped on him, he is still making the reception consistently. This dude is a deep play threat, not only because of his athleticism, but because of his ability to make contested catches down the field. Meanwhile, last season's offense for the Cowboys was basically, let's run CeeDee Lamb into the pavement. Over the past 3 seasons, CeeDee Lamb is second in the NFL in targets behind only Davante Adams, including a league-leading 181 targets in 2023. He also carried the ball 14 times in 2 of the last 3 seasons. So in 2024, with no run game and a limited passing attack, the Cowboys offense often felt like, can we just find CeeDee Lamb? Get the ball to CeeDee Lamb. That's all they had, right? But with Pickens clearly taking the top off defenses, despite, having perhaps men that can keep up with him downfield, CeeDee Lamb is going to have all the space to work in the screen game, in the short routes, the intermediate routes. For CeeDee, I think Pickens means less targets, but way more effectiveness. I think you are going to see the best version of CeeDee Lamb this coming season because of this trade. It's just a great move by the Cowboys, getting one of the elite downfield threats in the NFL. It is a perfect move for my Dallas Cowboys, and I'm very excited about it. And after that long-winded opening word, talking Cowboys, I want to bring in my good buddy, your friend, host of the Pete Sousa Show. It's Pete Sousa, everybody. Hey, Pete. Pete, I can hear you, but it's a little choppy, a little grainy there, man.
Can you hear
Can you
me?
hear me? Oh, okay. We're hanging in there. We lost Pete. We'll give him a second to catch back up. Pete, again, at the Big 12 softball tournament today, hanging out, calling games for ESPN. I need him to fill me in. I didn't even keep up with the results yesterday. All right, we'll pull Pete and see if he can get back in here. Zach Burke is in the room, but not on camera. Zach, any thoughts on my George Pickens rant and how he fits with CeeDee Lamb?
I think that he should compliment him very well. I think also I am in agreement with you, and I brought this up earlier this morning talking about it, is the trades that they've made before. I think what you gave up to get this to help bolster your wide receiving core is a lot better move than some of the moves they made in the past for sure. I like to think, I think that it's, I mean, I hate coming out on trades and be like, oh, yeah, no, this is going to work out, because obviously we don't know. But at least looking at it from, stepping back, to me, it has all the makings of being a successful trade, of something where you didn't have to give up a lot and it could pay dividends for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, let's say Pickens struggles to integrate or isn't a perfect fit, or there's an issue. Like, you gave up a third-round pick. Pickens is better than any third-round player right out of college. Maybe not long-term, but, like, in the immediate future, very true. So the Cowboys clearly had a plan. All right, I think Pete's back with us. We'll try to bring him in again. Let's see if we keep the connection here. Pete Sousa, everybody.
Fuck.
Maybe. Pete, can you hear me? Well, we have evidence Pete is alive. He's alive and present. Folks, he's doing his best, Zach. He's doing his best.
He is. Sometimes that's the beauty of technology, though.
That's the beauty of a live. It's the beauty of a live show and trying to check in with someone via the phone.
That too. No, it's something that you never know until you're in it, and then sometimes all you can do is just do the best.
Just roll with it. Just roll with it. By the way, our friend Bear the Truth on the Pickens conversation says it will be great if Ferguson and Schoonmaker can take big steps forward. It's a really good point. The Cowboys, you've now got a clear wide receiver one in CD. You've got a kind of a borderline 1-2 level player with George Pickens, and then but what are you getting from that running back spot, right? Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, who else? That's a question. And then, of course, what are you getting from the tight ends? We're going to try one more time, Pete. This is it. Here we go, Pete Sousa.
How about now?
Pete, I think I can hear you now.
Good,
What's
right?
going on, man? How's Oklahoma City? I thought we had it this time.
Oh man!
Oh, we're on a delay, Pete. Give us a quick. Oh, okay, he's gone again. Well, the Pete Sousa Show tries to check in with Pete Sousa, and we struggle. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We will figure out how to get Pete back on screen tomorrow. It happens that way sometimes, but no worries, because we've got a great show for you today from Waco. Coming up, we're going to talk to Shehan, Jeyarajah, and I'm going to ask him. I have a proposal for Brett Yormark, who of course got extended this week as Big 12 commissioner. I've got a proposal for how to fix the Big 12 scheduling stuff. So we'll talk to Shehan about that. And then we're going to talk to Garrett Melcer of FC Dallas. I want to convince you, if you are a sports fan of any stripe, I love you. I want you as part of the MLS family. I promise you'll love it. Come check it out. Don't go anywhere. The Pete Sousa Show rolls on after this word from our sponsors.
Dive into adventure with Scuba.com, your ultimate destination for top-tier scuba and snorkeling gear. With over 20 years of experience, our expert staff, who've dived everywhere from the Galapagos to the Maldives, provides personalized advice to help you find the perfect gear for any underwater journey. Shop leading brands like GoPro, Aqualung, and Scuba Pro. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, trust Scuba.com for the best in diving equipment and expert guidance. Explore now at Scuba.com. That's SCUBA.com. Scuba.com. At Fullwell, we bring together the expertise of registered dietitians, MDs, and OBGYNs to give you the best fertility support. Our research-backed bioavailable formulas are crafted with your health in mind, ensuring the highest quality and safety. From preconception to pregnancy and beyond, we exceed industry standards with independent testing for harmful contaminants. With our comprehensive practitioner directory, personalized care is always within reach. Fullwell, your trusted partner on your fertility journey. Visit us at fullwellfertility.com. Experience the perfect blend of exquisite craftsmanship and life-changing technology with Gevi. Every product is built with precision, featuring specialized parts that ensure durability, efficiency, and safety. We put every machine through 6,000 rigorous tests to guarantee long-lasting performance. With cutting-edge technology and a commitment to energy efficiency, Gevi makes your life easier, greener, and more convenient. Upgrade your everyday with Gevi. Visit us at gevi.com to discover more. That's gevi.com.
With San, owning iconic furniture no longer requires paying a premium. We use the finest materials like Italian top-grain leather, known for its durability and luxurious feel, and apply meticulous attention to detail in every piece we create. Our replicas are crafted with the same care and precision as the originals, but a price that makes them accessible. With over 15,000 satisfied customers worldwide, we've proven that high-quality furniture doesn't have to come with a high price tag. Explore our collection today at san.com.
At Covers & All, we've revolutionized protective solutions with cutting-edge, customizable covers, tarps, and curtains. Using advanced tech fabrics that are 100% waterproof, UV tear, and abrasion-resistant, we ensure lasting durability with hand-sewn double-stitch seams. Our commitment to quality, precision engineering, and customizable options is unmatched. With vertically integrated operations and express shipping, we deliver premier protection at affordable prices. Visit coversandall.com today for the perfect fit, guaranteed to last.
At Open Goal USA, we're revolutionizing training for both soccer and lacrosse with our innovative portable rebounders. Perfect for players of all ages and skill levels, our rebounders improve accuracy, control, and technique in both sports. Built with premium materials for durability and ease of use, they're ideal for training anywhere, anytime. Whether you're perfecting your soccer game or sharpening your lacrosse skills, Open Goal USA has you covered. Visit OpenGoAAALUSA.com and elevate your training today.
Relax with Hemp Delicious. Organically grown hemp, massively blended with delicious organic herbs, responsibly sourced for their holistic benefits. Each sip offers calming, antioxidant-rich wellness. Brewed just for you. Sip the calm with Hemp Delicious. Find your blend at hempdelicious.com.
Introducing Muck-Off's classic pink bike cleaner, powered by revolutionary nanotechnology that breaks down dirt and grime on a microscopic level while protecting your bike's delicate finish. Developed by our mad developer Alex and tested by riders, our products are made by riders for riders. Discover more at us.muc-off.com, where we break the mold to bring you the best in bike care.
Get paid faster with Bill, the easiest way to send, receive, and manage your payments. No more delays, no more hassle. Whether you're a freelancer or a business, Bill makes payments seamless and secure, simple, fast, and reliable. Sign up today at Bill.com.
Man, here's the deal. Pete Sousa is making Zach Burke and I work overtime up here trying to figure out how to make this connection work. We are going to give it one more shot. Pete, one more shot.
How we doing? How we doing?
Now I can hear you. My goodness. Welcome to the Pete Sousa Show, Pete Sousa. Good to see you.
It's great to see you guys. I'm here at the softball capital of the world. Just wanted to say thank you to Scotty for holding it down and Zach for holding it down. I really appreciate you guys. And 4 games today from Oklahoma City. We had 3 yesterday, one of which Baylor was victorious. They did what they had to do, getting the win over Kansas. By the way, back-to-back home runs.
Incredible.
They put a charge in the entire atmosphere here, and then they'll be back at it today with a chance to beat Texas Tech. Now, if they beat Texas Tech and they get to the semifinals, now we're really talking about a possibility of Baylor getting to the NCAA tournament, which would be huge for this team in a year where they've had an injury-riddled season. and they've had to turn to Lily Walker in the circle. But she has been phenomenal. Pitching today, once again, I would imagine, I guess like 200 miles from where she grew up in Ola, Oklahoma. So cool story, dude. I'm so pumped to be here. I'm calling the games with Kat Osterman. She's like just a legend. And,
I mean, arguably the greatest softball player of all time. No big
Yes. And for us, it's huge because she's, as much as she's UT, right? And I know you're Baylor, Scotty, and a lot of folks are watching this are Baylor, but she's still amazing. And you know what the cool thing is? We're doing the Big 12 tournament, and with all the transition that has happened with the Big 12 conference and teams going to the SEC, she still considers herself Big 12. She's like, oh, I'm Big 12 all the way. She goes, that's where all my records are. So it's pretty cool.
That's super cool. So tell us about the matchups coming up today and where people can find you.
Well, I'll tell you, the big matchup today really kicks off right when Scotty wraps up the show at 11 a.m. Honestly, if you're even just a sports fan, go to ESPN Plus. It's the beginning of 4 games, but of course you're going to want to watch Baylor if you're in Central Texas. So you can mark that one down. That's probably going to be a 1:30 start against Texas Tech. But the first game of the day, 11 a.m., is Oklahoma State and Arizona State. Oklahoma State is fighting for, they want to host, right, in the NCAA tournament. And Arizona State is already in the NCAA tournament. Arizona State's got this pitcher, this ace, Kennedy Brown. Malin is a pitcher for Oklahoma State. She's been unbelievable. So this girl Malin on Oklahoma State, I love this stuff, Scotty, because it's football related. Her dad was a defensive tackle at Nebraska, right? Played for Tom Osborne. Her her grandfather played for Tom Osborne at Nebraska. This dude was a defensive tackle. He was 9th in the Heisman voting.
Wow.
I think it was like in the 60s. I think 60s or 70s. She wears 66 because that's what her granddad wore. So that's, as you know, some of the funnest stuff about this is you get a chance to kind of dig into some of these young women and learn some of their awesome stories. And, one of the most awesome people we'll get the chance to watch once again today is Shaylin Govan, Baylor's power hitter. She hit a home run yesterday, was part of that 3-run back-to-back home runs consecutively. I even got a text from Matt Mosley telling me I was doing a good job, which always makes you feel good.
Matt.
Yeah. You're doing a good job, Matt Mosley.
Pete, you're doing a good job. Maybe give some more coverage to those Baylor Bears.
Why don't you take care of the Baptists? But so, what do you think about the Pickens trade, by the way? We haven't talked about it. I got like 2 minutes on this.
Okay, well, everybody just heard me wax poetic about it for about 12 minutes, but mostly I think he's closer to a number 1 than a number 2 in the NFL. I'm kind of shocked the Steelers let him go. I think he and CeeDee Lamb together allow each other to do what they do best, which for Pickens is get downfield, threaten the deep ball, and for Lamb it's all the other stuff. It's the tunnel screens and the intermediate routes and the yards after catch, right? So I honestly think the Cowboys were way too CeeDee Lamb reliant the past 2 seasons, especially when nothing else was working. It was like, is CeeDee Lamb triple covered? Great, throw him the ball anyway. And this solves a lot of those issues, I think.
All right, here's my Stephen A. Smith hottest take of the day.
Oh, let's
ready?
Go.
And I kind of do think this, I think Stephen A. is legendary. I think this is going to be the moment that we are confirming that Dak Prescott is not as good as we thought he was. Because now he's going to have these 2 wide receivers. And I think it's a real opportunity for the mask to be ripped off, like at the end of the Scooby-Doo episode. And you're like, oh, man, like, this wasn't Dak Prescott. This was Hal the janitor the whole time.
I can't stand up like Pat McAfee because the camera doesn't go too high. But I'm standing up. I'm so excited. I thought you were a Dak Prescott defender while I've always been like more of a hater.
Well, I'm kind of somebody who, you know this about me, and you're a really knowledgeable sports fan. I try to see the big picture. So I always try to understand or at least give the benefit of the doubt to these superstar athletes, right? Like, why is he struggling? What's going on? Because at the end of the day, he tugs on my heartstrings. He's such an amazing dude that you want to root for. He's a great person. Yeah, and I think that when you get the keys to the Cowboys offense and there's so much pressure that goes with that, I think that, everybody and their grandma is going to take shots at you when the going gets tough. Now, I do think that the table is set for him to have a big year. And if he does not, you sons of bitches are going to turn on him faster than ever. So,
but here's the X factor.
Just
Pete,
like Eagles fans would, just like any NFL fan base would, by the way.
And here's the X factor, by the way. And then I know, like, you've got to go work, and I've got Shehan Jeyarajah in the wings. But
it's my show. Tell him to hold on. All right. I'm just kidding.
Here's the X factor: is we have no idea how well that offensive line's going to play.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to give like extra grace to Dak. He's had plenty of time and not a lot of playoff success to show for it. But like, I don't know what the offensive line's going to look like or how healthy they're going to be. There's a lot of question marks on defense where like, when are Overshown and Diggs back? Like, there's some holes still over there. And then frankly, like, who's going to be your lead running back? Like Javonte Williams. Maybe like Caden Blue, is he an every down back? Like, we just don't. So I agree with you in terms of the passing game is going to just benefit tremendously from this. But I still think there's going to be enough excuses for Dak if the team struggles. And frankly, Paul Catalina called me out last week, right? I'm the king of making excuses for Tony Romo, like bad defense, no line, no run game. You know, that's me as well. So, but we'll see, man. We'll keep talking about that in the fall. That's going to be fascinating.
All right. Well, you're fascinating, and so is Zach Burke. Thank you very much for having me on. You're doing a hell of a job, and I'll check back in with you tomorrow.
All right, man. Well, now that we know how to stay connected, maybe it'll be a smoother transition.
I mean, it's typical, right? I'm in that room complaining about people with bad connections, and here I am, right? A victim of my own complaint.
Yep. You know, life has a way of humbling us and putting us in other people's
shoes. It
shoes.
sure does, dude. The big guy's got a sense of humor. All right, man. Sick 'em bears. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Take care.
See ya.
That, of course, is our fearless leader, Pete Sousa. The show's named after him. Man, that was great. We're going to go straight to my conversation with CBS Sports' Shehan Jeyarajah, one of my good friends in the business. I've known him since his Baylor Lariat days. We're going to talk a little Big 12 football. This is the Pete Sousa Show. Welcome back to the Pete Sousa Show. And how in the world was I going to host this thing without bringing in a friend? Shehan Jeyarajah of CBS Sports, college football reporter and writer extraordinaire, joining me now. Hey, real quick, you're in the DFW area, Shehan. Reaction to George Pickens becoming a Dallas Cowboy?
Well, the Cowboys love to take swings like this on personalities, don't they? Yes. They love to buy low a little bit. But, I mean, I think that George Pickens is a really talented player. And I think the one thing that you say about this Dallas Cowboys locker room is I do think that they do have some good offensive leadership with guys like Dak. CeeDee Lamb, I think, is a good personality. I love the arrival of Tyler Booker as somebody who I think is going to be a good positive presence. But I'll tell you what, I mean, there have been some flameouts of these ex-Steelers players whenever they've left that locker room. So, I do love, we've kind of heard in the early going that he wants to have a prove-it contract and really more negotiate next year. I think that that's a great way to handle it for both sides. And again, the talent is there. I'm fascinated to see what happens.
Well, I was just saying, I think talent-wise, he really is more close to a number one than a number two to me. I think pairing him with Lamb is very exciting. Okay, here's why, the main reason I wanted to bring you in. So I want to talk Big 12. Earlier this week, Pete and I went over Joel Klatt's college football top 25 post-spring camp. We were a little interested by how he had the Big 12 teams sorted and ranked. First question for you as a guy who covers college football on a national scale. Is it crazy to think that the Big 12 is now just firmly entrenched in that number 3 conference position? Why or why not?
Well, there's kind of two ways to look at it, right? The first way that you look at it, I mean, the reality is the Big 12 was the only power conference that did not have multiple teams in the playoff last year. And that's a reality, right? I think that that's a perception thing. At the same time, when you look at the way that the Big 12 team performed when they got there in Arizona State, I think they looked really good. I think they showed that they belonged. The other way that I think there is to look at it is when you look at this conference top to bottom, I mean, I don't think top to bottom there's really a whole lot of argument. Like the middle and bottom of the Big 12 is on a different planet than the middle and bottom of the ACC. how do you view that with the contrast of, well, maybe the ACC has teams that can win a national championship in the Big 12. I don't know if they do. Like, it really comes down to how you weigh it. Now, the one thing that I will say, and the one thing that I think that the Big 12 has done a really good job of trying to display themselves is the Big 12 is guaranteed all 16 of their teams are going to fully fund rev share. And when you talk about being a league that is willing to contend and compete with the best in the country, I mean, I think that that's the way that you do it. You say that your 16th best team is still going to fund rev share at a $20 million level. I think it's a big deal. So there's kind of different ways to view it. And again, it also comes down to, like, how are you viewing the rest of the sports? How are you viewing basketball? Like, all these things factor in. But I think the Big 12 right now is a league I'd have in the third position. But again, this is going to be a multi-year journey to establish themselves as well.
Absolutely. And as part of all this conference realignment and shifting and teams coming in and out over the last several years, like 15 years now, we've been going through this. Texas A&M's last year in the conference was 2011, right? Here's what spurred this for me, right? Baylor is not playing Texas Tech this fall. And that feels really weird to me. It feels really bizarre, and in a way I would say it feels wrong. And I don't think I would ever say Texas Tech is like a high-key rival of Baylor. I don't think either school feels that way, but with other Texas schools departing the conference, like, this has become a matchup I look forward to every single season. And so I have a proposal, and I'm going to put it on the screen here, and then I want your honest reaction to this proposal. This is the proposal. I think the Big 12, for the sake of keeping some of these traditional things together, needs to go to 4-team pods where they're all guaranteed to play each other every season in conference play. So the way Scotty would do it, if I could propose this to the Big 12, this is what my pods would look like. We'd have the Big 12 North, which would essentially be the Big 12 North from like 2010, 2009, right? You got Colorado, Kansas, Iowa State, and Kansas State. You'd have the Big 12 South, which would be Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech. The East would be Cincinnati, UCF, West Virginia, and Houston, which are essentially the American Conference teams, which got into the Big 12, plus West Virginia. And then the West would be, the Utah schools and the Arizona schools. That just makes way too much sense to me. Here's what that looks like on a map. And I want to acknowledge, Shehan, before I get your take, I know this is weird for Houston. Like, I understand that is what I would call maybe the flaw, if there is one in this plan, but that just works so much better to me than trying to get Oklahoma State somewhere weird. What do you do with, it's just weird when you have 3 schools that are clearly East, and who else do you kind of throw over there? But that's how Scotty would arrange the Big 12. What's your reaction to that idea?
Yeah, the first reaction is definitely that Houston fans are going to be incredibly, incredibly mad whenever they see this graphic, because the whole point of them moving back to the Big 12 was getting to play these other Texas schools and was getting to deal with these ex-Southwest Conference rivals. Now, of course, Oklahoma State has been a much bigger brand over the past 20 years. So, for example, as somebody who obviously, like yourself, is a graduate of one of these schools that's been a legacy team, sure, I understand why a Baylor graduate might want to play Oklahoma State instead.
Well, and not only that, Shehan, but I've heard the Southwest Conference thing, the Southwest Conference. First of all, nobody wants Rice back in the same league as all these schools. So the Southwest Conference lovers, I'm kind of out on that. Second of all, the Big 12 was formed in February of 1994. I was a year and a half old. So to me, and I'll let you continue, but to me, Oklahoma State belongs with Baylor and Texas Tech in a pod way more than Houston does. That was part of my logic as well. But continue.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, for Oklahoma State fans, I'm sure they get it. Now, at the same time, the other thing that you look at, though, is that if you're adjusting a little bit, like you could have just a Pac-12 pod, right? With the legacy Pac-12 schools, you could also have a little bit more of, like you said, I mean, Oklahoma State was a Big 8 team with those other teams that are in the Northern pod. So there are different ways to approach it. I mean, I think that when you're talking about schools, like if you look at that map, right, like Iowa State is further east certainly than Houston is, even though Iowa State obviously has their historic ties with Kansas and Kansas State. But this is the complication of all of this, right? Is like you almost as a league have to figure out who exactly are you screwing in the process. Now, this is the case as well with the protected rivalries. And I mean, I think that actually the protected rivalries that we have in some ways expose some of the complication of this modern Big 12, which is Oklahoma State. They don't have a rival anymore, right? Like their rival plays in another conference. Texas Tech doesn't have a true rival the same way that Baylor TCU is, the way that Utah BYU is, the way that Arizona State is. And like that's complicating. Now, I think that there's also ways to obviously try to build some things long-term to create new rivalries, especially if some of these schools that have some Cincinnati and West Virginia is a perfect example. I think that long-term, maybe that's something that develops into a really nice rivalry because of the geographic proximity and also with their history in the Big East as well. So I think that there's some merit here, but it does get really complicated when you start being like, man, you got 4 Texas schools, but we don't want one of them because we don't want to elevate them the same way that we do the other 3 Texas schools.
Yeah. I know as soon as I'm drawing this up, I'm like, this is not fair to Houston. To me, it's not about elevating. It's just about it's tradition at this point for me. It's like like Big 12.
But like you had for example, right? Like Andre Ware was playing against Baylor and TCU, right? Like he was playing against these schools in the state. And I get it, right? All respect to my good friends over at Rice University. No one's asking for Rice to be back. But that doesn't mean that all the rest of the other teams that have these long-standing relationships matter, right? The reason, for example, that we're talking about Baylor not playing Texas Tech anymore, and we're not talking about Baylor not playing West Virginia or whoever, I think they do get West Virginia, but that's beside the point, is because Baylor and Texas Tech have been playing since the 70s, since they were both members of the Southwest Conference. The reason that we talk about Baylor and TCU as a rivalry is because they've been playing since the 1900s, right? Because of their legacy and because for them too, they were members long-term of the Southwest Conference. So I get it. And now, actually, I think that one other thing to factor in there is, if you wanted to do it a little differently, is actually if there's a team in Texas that has some history with some other schools, Texas Tech with the Arizona schools actually has some history as members of previous conferences. Obviously, Texas Tech, a Texas school, they would want to play against the other Texas schools, but they also have history playing Arizona and Arizona State. I can't remember what the conference was called back in the day, but they were a member of a conference together at one point. So it all gets very complicated, and you do, again, as a league, you almost have to build winners and losers into this process because of it. But I also do think, I mean, I'll tell you what, like, you know, we went to school in the mid-2010s when the Big 12 was a 10-team league and you played a full round robin. I mean, look, nothing's ever going to hit the same as that. Like, it's just not, right? Like, there's never going to be anything that's as cool as knowing. Like, for me right now, I'm putting together some of my projections for the Big 12, and I'm having to be like, well, who plays who? Like, do you have an easy schedule? Do you have a hard schedule? Well, like, with the old Big 12, you played everybody. And yeah, you got certain teams on the road and some certain teams at home, but there wasn't we don't even have to play Oklahoma. We don't even have to play Arizona State or BYU or whoever. And I mean, I think you even look last year at, or maybe 2 years ago is the better example, where Oklahoma State, who maybe isn't all that great a team, manages to go all the way to playing in the Big 12 title game because of their schedule. Like, it's reality. But I wish it wasn't the case at the same time.
No, you're spot on. Well, and it's also a reality that we don't know what any of these teams are actually going to be. Arizona State was picked last season, right? And then, yeah, they were one play away at multiple points from beating Texas and getting into a college football semifinal. So you just never know in this league. So here's the question, and you've thrown out a couple ideas, but just because I went ahead and just put my proposal on the table, how would you organize the Big 12? Would you just leave it the way it is? Would you be in favor of divisions or pods, or if you could design it any way you wanted, what would you do with these teams?
Yeah, it's really complicated. That's the first thing that I'll say, right? There isn't, I don't think, a good way to do a 16-team conference. What I will say is I think that whatever model you pick, I think that I probably would lean towards a divisionless model, but I think that there are merits to a division-based model. But the biggest thing that I'd say is that I would want to see consistent adjustment to the model. And what I mean by that is right now we don't know, like you said, over the next 5 years, we don't know who's going to be good long term, right? We don't know who's going to, because there just isn't, right? You kind of know when you're setting up the SEC, like there are these teams that have track record. There really isn't much track record for anybody in this new Big 12 for good and bad reasons, right? So what I would want is, let's just say hypothetically that we do a divisional setup. Well, I'd want the divisions to be adjusted every 3 to 5 years based on the previous results of the past 3 years, let's say, right? Where you have a little bit of a rolling understanding of like, this is where this team has been. Now, again, like that doesn't protect you from Arizona State going from last place to first place, but I think that it does create a little bit more of a big picture balance to where, okay, you're playing in this divisional setup, and ultimately though, it's going to be like, you're not going to have an overbalanced side of the conference, right? You're not going to have an SEC West to an SEC East where it just makes the conference title game a joke historically, right? So that would be the biggest thing that I'd say. And I think that should be true even if you do a divisional setup or a divisionless setup. I think that you should still have sort of a schedule built around the idea of, let's try to balance things the best that we can. And you're never going to be perfect, and that's not the point, but at least you have some sort of idea of like, hey, you know what? There's not just one team who's missing everybody year in and year out, and there's not just one team who's getting everybody every single year.
That's a great idea. That's a really, really interesting way to look at it. And I think the only issue I have with that is, part of my pods proposal was to maintain some of those regional traditional matchups. Whereas if you're just doing divisions based on results, you could lose Baylor, TCU, right? But B, I was thinking about this as you were talking. In the aughts, there was a period of time where like Nebraska had kind of fallen off and Colorado had fallen off. And so you actually knew that whoever won the Big 12 South was going to win the conference, right? Baylor, frankly, was the only team that wasn't competitive during that time. Tech had some years with Mike Leach. Texas A&M had some years. Texas and Oklahoma were always right there. Oklahoma State had a couple times, right? And you almost kind of knew the Big 12 South champ would be the champ, whether they face Mizzou or Nebraska or whoever else in the conference title game. And I actually think that was kind of fun. So you can have competitive juice, I think, either way. Last question for you. We talked earlier this week about Brett Yormark getting a 3-year extension as the commissioner of the Big 12. I don't think there's any question. Like, dude has done an outstanding job, in my estimation, of keeping the conference together. A, just look at the Pac-12, right? But B, I think expanding in a way that makes sense, but not being over aggressive or desperate in how he's grown the conference. If you could project what's next, right? There's been rumors in the past couple of years about, could Florida State and Clemson jump to the Big 12 and really make the Big 12 right there with the Big 10? Could there be an interest in getting some basketball schools, a UConn or even like a Gonzaga basketball only, or I immediately think, let's go get Duke and North Carolina, that can be decent at football and good at basketball, right? What would you say, if you had to look into your crystal ball, is next for the Big 12 over the next 3 to 5 years?
So I think over the next 3, there's very little chance that there's much movement. I think that we're really looking at the 2030, 2031, 2032. And the reason for that is that's when a lot of these television contracts come open. When the Big 12 comes open, they're scheduled to expire in 2031, right? When the Big 10 and SEC also come up. And I think that the other thing too, that's kind of a little underrated in this process is Florida State and Clemson found a settlement with the ACC, but it will make it a little easier to buy out early of the contract than what it was before. Now, not easy, certainly. They will have to have a destination that makes sense, but I do think that it pulls up a little bit the deadline in order, in exchange for the next 5 to 6 years maybe being a little bit smoother. So the biggest priority for Brett Yormark at this point is going to be, can we replicate some of what we were able to do from a contractual perspective and keep this conference together long term? Again, the contract doesn't come up until 2031, but you're going to be doing those negotiations, you'd imagine, by the end of his contract in 2030. And I think more than, I don't necessarily think there's going to be expansion or movement at the power conference level over the next couple of years. I think that everybody's going to kind of stay put. And the other thing too for the Big 12 is you're going to figure out who are our most valuable brands that are in this league right now. There has to be a little bit of a settling process before we can even start to evaluate too much. But the other piece that I do expect to see a little more of is I expect to see a much more of a focus on basketball. And what I mean by that is Brett Yormark has not been shy about the fact that he plans to try and sell the Big 12's basketball contracts for television potentially separately from the football contracts, because Big 12 basketball is a big deal both on the men's and women's side. There's upside there that he believes is not being taken advantage of. And last year we saw some of this come about because the Big 12 decided to move more of their product over to CBS Sports, right? They broadcast more games on CBS Sports Network nationally. They broadcast more games on CBS as well. And that's, I think, going to be a precursor. Now, the question becomes, whenever you do get in that situation of trying to sell the basketball product, then maybe a UConn conversation becomes kind of interesting, right? If you are trying to sell that separately. And by the way, I know that nobody's paying much attention to it, but Jim Moore is doing a good job out there at UConn on the football side as well. They only lost to power conference teams last year, and they dominated their group of 5 slate. So they are trying to elevate themselves to where they can at least be considered whenever the Big 12 comes back around as well. So I don't expect any real movement in the next 2 or 3 years, but I think that when we start getting closer to the contract being negotiated, again, Brett Yormark is a basketball guy by heart, right? He was in the NBA for a long time, and he's a marketing and entertainment guy. And I expect both of those factors to really come into play when it's ultimately time for these contracts to come up.
Fantastic stuff, Shehan. And, last question, kind of follow up to that, though. You talked about UConn. Anything to this idea of basketball-only participants? Could there be a Gonzaga or a Villanova or one of those really, really elite programs that's not in a major conference that might want to jump into the Big 12 as a basketball-only program?
I don't see it personally. So here's a couple pieces to it, right? One, for Villanova specifically, the Big East is going to be a great place to be a basketball school over the next couple of years, because while you, first of all, have the schedule and the branding and all that sort of stuff, you also have the fact that no school in that group is going to be wasting NIL money or rev share money, rather, on football, right? So you're going to see some of these schools push their budgets in a way that power conference schools just can't match, because they can't allocate the amount of money that Big East schools are going to be able to start giving, because they're going to be basketball only in many cases. So I think that that's one piece of it. Now, again, UConn is going to be a very interesting situation for how they handle that big picture, but that's kind of a separate thing. I also think, too, that while there are some merits to the idea of one sport only membership, it creates a lot of complications in other places too, right? Like you, because again, then like what you have to organize with another conference. So what do you do with, if you have football? What do you do if you have baseball? What do you do? So I just don't think that there's a whole lot of attraction in the short term. Now, look, when we're looking 20 years down the road, maybe we'll just have sports-specific conferences, right? Like maybe that's something that makes more sense in the long-term future. But right now, I mean, again, there are conferences that are focused right now on individual sports, be it football, be it basketball, be it whatever else. And I think that ultimately, in this moment, it's just too complicated to try to figure out what to do with an entire athletic department when you're only wanted for one thing.
Great stuff. Makes total sense. Shehan Jeyarajah, tell everybody where to find you and where to follow your content.
Yeah, you can find me on all social media platforms at Shehan Jeyarajah. It's an easy handle to get, thank goodness. And you can also read all my work over at cbssports.com.
Thanks so much. That was awesome. We will be right back. Coming up next, you can see the phone case. FC Dallas, what you maybe can't see so well on the bottom, it's hashtag DTID, Dallas till I die. Garrett Melcer, content creator for FC Dallas, is going to join us next on the Pete Sousa Show, presented by Slovachex.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com. Looking for tickets to the hottest shows, games, and events? Ticket Liquidator is your one-stop shop for great prices, no hassles, and guaranteed tickets. Since 2003, we've been connecting buyers and sellers, providing access to sold-out events at prices lower than most secondary market options. Whether it's sports, theater, or concerts, our massive nationwide network ensures you get the tickets you want, guaranteed. For the best seats at the biggest events, start with Ticket Liquidator today at ticketliquidator.com. That's TICKETLIQUIDATOR.com. Ticket Liquidator.
I'm Hunter, the founder of Hello Cake, and today we're digging into ED meds. The number one thing we hear is that guys are sick of waiting for ED meds to kick in. Traditional ED meds take about an hour to kick in as they have to go through your digestive system, where Hello Cake's ED medication dissolves under your tongue and works in about 15 minutes. That's about 3 times faster than traditional ED medication. Curious about ED meds? Go to hellocake.com.
InMotion is more than just a name. It's a legacy of innovation. From supplying electric vehicle parts like motors and inverters since the 1960s to creating cutting-edge electric scooters, hoverboards, and unicycles. InMotion is shaping the future of mobility. Whether you're looking for industrial power solutions or accessible personal transport, InMotion has you covered. Explore our products and experience the future of movement. Visit store.inmotionworld.com today.
Is your Mac running slow? Mac Booster 8 is your all-in-one solution to clean up 20 types of junk files, remove malware and viruses, and protect your device. It also optimizes your Mac's hard disk, fixes disk permission issues, and cleans memory, all to boost your Mac's performance to the max. Get your Mac running like new again with Mac Booster 8. Visit macboost.net today.
Finding a sleep sack that my baby likes has been a struggle.
The sleep sack from Joy is a major upgrade.
It is all natural eucalyptus, which is breathable and hypoallergenic, which is really great for your baby's sensitive skin.
And it's made with Climatech, which regulates your baby's temperature.
You can also get Joy's crib sheets, which are made of the same super soft material.
Joy gave my baby comfort
and gave me peace of mind.
At Mapiful, we believe in celebrating your journey, past, present, and future. Our unique personalized products are designed to boost your confidence, elevate creativity, and honor what matters most. From custom home decor to meaningful gifts, we help you cherish the memories that make you who you are. Visit mapiful.com and start celebrating your story today.
Maud Lily is your go-to for stylish and affordable fashion that fits your life. Whether you're looking for the perfect swimsuit for a beach day, a chic dress for a night out, or cozy tops for everyday wear, Maud Lily has it all. Their extensive collection of swimwear, including bikinis, tankinis, and one-pieces, always keeps you on trend, while their dresses and tops come in flattering styles for every occasion. Visit maudlily.com today.
Welcome back to the Pete Sousa Show, and I told Pete if he was going to let me host this week, we were going to have to talk some soccer. No better guy to talk soccer with than Garrett Melcer. Garrett is the digital content manager for FC Dallas. That's my club. You can see the kit that I'm rocking here today. Garrett, welcome to the Pete Sousa Show. Dude, I told you off camera, I'll tell you now, I love what you're doing with the team. In fact, when I became an FC Dallas fan, my biggest complaint was like, man, I wish there was a little more fan engagement going on. And with the stadium renovations underway and now the content you and your team are producing, it's awesome, man. So really super appreciate you, and thanks for joining the show.
Thanks so much, man. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, first of all, FC Dallas located in Frisco, which a decade ago seemed way out of the way. And suddenly I've even had a friend compare it to the third arm of the DFW Metroplex. It feels like it is just exploding, population, financially, industry, all of it. The Star, of course, we talked Cowboys earlier, the Star moving up there in 2016, just down the way from Toyota Stadium. What is that energy like in Frisco, Texas right now?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. North Texas in general is one of the fastest growing places in the country. And Frisco specifically has gone crazy. You mentioned 10 years ago that it was out of the way. The first time I went to Toyota Stadium was in 2005, a couple months after it opened. And the stadium was basically like an oasis. It was just a stadium all lit up, looking nice, and then around it was absolutely nothing, like cow pastures. The Dallas North Tollway didn't even reach up there, so it was pretty much in the middle of absolutely nothing. And the city has really just grown up around it, and Frisco has really gone pretty hard in the paint in terms of making it a sports city. You mentioned the Cowboys headquartered there, also the Stars as well. The Rangers minor league team is here, the Frisco Rough Riders, and the PGA also just moved their headquarters here pretty recently too. So it's a happening town, man, for sure.
Man, and of course, even within Toyota Stadium, the National Soccer Hall of Fame built just a few years back. So part of why I brought you on, Garrett, I grew up playing soccer here in Central Texas. It's a sport I've always loved. And even as a guy growing up playing soccer, I didn't really get into watching MLS until about 10 years ago, and I became an FC Dallas supporter. But for sports fans who watch this show, and maybe they would say, man, I grew up in Texas, it's all about football, or I'm into basketball, baseball. How would you tell just like a sports fan, hey, this is why you should watch soccer? Because, I mean, let's be honest, like everywhere else in the world, soccer is the team sport of choice. What would you say to someone who hasn't watched a lot of soccer about why they should enjoy the sport?
Yeah, it's a big question, but you kind of mentioned it there, the fact that it's the global game, it's the world's game, and that's one of the things I love about it. Like, I work with players from all over the world. You get to meet people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and get to learn a little bit about how they see the world and how they see the game. That's really cool. And the world becoming more globalized in general, so it's never been easier to learn more about that. And soccer is a great way. The sport itself, though, I'll go with it has nonstop action, and I know that's kind of the opposite of what a lot of other sport fans think. But I mean, it's 2 halves of 45 minutes. There's no timeouts. The only time it really stops is for substitutions, and so it continually goes, and there's not a lot of breaks or stoppages or commercial breaks or anything like that. So it keeps you glued to the screen in a lot of ways. And I'd suggest for people who are getting into it, they think, oh, it's low scoring, therefore it's low action. And I'd push back on that, because the best ways to enjoy it is to start appreciating the non-goal scoring moments, whether it be like a great chance or a really nice pass or a long ball. And I'll equate it to golf in a way. I didn't really enjoy watching golf until I tried playing it and realized how incredibly difficult it is to just hit the ball straight and get it to go where you want it to. Soccer is similar, man. You're not throwing it. It's a lot easier to throw a ball where you want it to go. Now try kicking it. It's a lot different. So, if it's a pickup game that you can just hop in and just see how difficult it is to trap a ball when it's coming at you with some speed, that will give you an appreciation of what these guys are doing, at full speed, at full pace while running for 90 minutes. Like, these guys are incredible athletes, and they're marrying that athleticism with a lot of technical ability and talent and skill. And so those are the things that helps you enjoy it, is to appreciate the moments that they're not scoring goals, because it averages less than 3 goals a game, which I know can turn some people off. But there's a lot that happens in between those goals that are pretty cool too.
Oh, Garrett, you nailed it. I couldn't have said it better myself. I tell fans, just as a consumer, my other favorite sport is college football. And what's so hard about college football right now is it feels like there's a 5-minute television timeout every 3 minutes. It feels like I get this much action and then I'm sitting through a TV timeout. Going to games has become miserable from that perspective in some ways. Whereas I tell people, you go to Toyota Stadium for a match, you're there 2 hours. Like, you're in, it's awesome soccer, quick halftime, and then you're out. It's a great sport from that perspective. And then, of course, the athletic perspective as well, as you mentioned. So MLS, when I was a kid growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, MLS, I would say, had a pretty uncertain future. Soccer was not as popular in America as it is now. I would say there was some gimmicky elements to it, from the way that they were doing PKs to even the uniforms and the team branding and all that, where now MLS has really kind of risen into this conversation where it's not in the top flight of leagues, Premier and Serie A and all these, but right there, kind of in that next level, MLS is kind of climbing into this respected league. There's real talent. There's real superstars, right? Messi, of course, coming over last year was huge for the league. Where do you see the MLS, or I made the cardinal sin there, MLS. Where do you see MLS slotting in on the world stage, and how is it continuing to grow and expand and evolve?
Yeah, on the world stage, in terms of ranking leagues, there's a lot of subjectivity around it, but there are some metrics and stuff that people put out, and it's usually in the top 10, but pretty near 10, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. So a long ways to go to get that top 5 status, which a lot of people say the top 5 leagues. That's England, Germany, Italy, sometimes France or Portugal kind of split the 5th spot. But part of that is because MLS was founded in 1996. That was their first season, where the European leagues are hundreds of years old at this point. The English Football League was founded in like the 1880s or something insane like that. So we got a lot of catching up to do. But in the last 10 years, especially last 5, really, it's kind of gotten to hyperdrive in a lot of ways, in terms of like the investment from the ownership and players who are realizing that it's a destination league rather than a retirement league, which I think it's unfortunately still has that reputation a little bit worldwide. And like you mentioned, Messi coming, still great for the league, but that kind of solidifies the retirement league for a little bit longer. But there's a lot of really talented players coming in their primes as well, that just don't have the name cachet that Messi does, of course, especially from South America. A lot of importing players who are super talented, who come here in their early 20s, sometimes late teens, and then do well here, and then they go on to Europe, to the even more established leagues. So MLS is kind of trying to the 1-2 punch in terms of getting established talent here, or up and coming talent here, to raise the league floor, and then also still getting the name brand guys like the Messis and the Suarez's down in Inter Miami, kind of leading the charge on that one. So you get the name recognition and the big stars, and you get to say, I saw Messi play, which is really cool. But also there's a lot of talent in between, and there's also a lot of domestic talent. Like the U.S. talent pool has never been more impressive. And a lot of that is thanks to MLS and the academy system, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah, the league's never been stronger, and it's only growing. And I think once the World Cup comes here in just about a year, that could really take it to the next level in terms of the overall exposure to the league, both here and abroad as well.
Man, I hope you're right. And I bring up Messi, of course, not because I want the retirement league reputation for MLS, but because I do think like that was some juice into folks that maybe wouldn't watch soccer otherwise, wanting to get into MLS and see what it's about. The other thing MLS has done that's really smart to me is they are picking really strategically where these new programs are coming. So like putting a team in Austin a few years back, brilliant. Like that's a city just made for professional sports, and the first professional sports franchise there is MLS, right?
Absolutely.
San Diego coming to the league this year, right? San Diego, of course, losing the Chargers to LA a few years back. That city's thirsty for a professional sports franchise to support. So I think that's been another way MLS has kind of brought in the country here to support these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because you mentioned Austin. I'm from Austin. I was born and raised there. That's where I started playing the game. And I'm an FC Dallas fan because back in 2005, when I first had the thirst to watch pro soccer, Dallas was literally the only MLS team in the state. So my dad and I would drive up, do the 4-hour drive up to Frisco every couple of months to catch games. So the fact that Austin was for a long time the largest city in the states that didn't have a pro team, yeah, they were crying out for it. And obviously with their sport they've done really well. Now they do need to get their act together a little bit on the field because I think they've only made the playoffs one time. But that'll happen for sure.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned it. Let's talk FC Dallas. That's who you work for. That's who I've been supporting since I got into MLS about 10 years ago. So FC Dallas, a foundational club, has been with MLS from the beginning. In a state where Texans have a choice. They could support Houston Dynamo. They could support Austin FC. Frankly, I'll be honest, like I'm in Waco. Austin FC is a little closer. Q2 Stadium is lit. I love going to matches there. I've been to a United States match there as well as some FC Dallas trips there. So why should the casual fan who maybe isn't supporting a particular side right now jump in with FC Dallas?
Yeah, they do have their choices now, which is a good thing. I didn't have that back in the day. But yeah, Dallas, like you said, it's the MLS original. There were original 10 teams. The 2 of them folded. Dallas could have easily folded back in the day. So if it weren't for FC Dallas and the other original clubs and the Hunt family, which owns FC Dallas, they really had a big hand in starting the league, and they owned multiple teams. There wouldn't be pro soccer at the high level that it is now without these people putting their money where their mouth was and going for it, establishing it. So there's something to be said for being early movers and taking the risk. Also, I'll say Dallas, more than the other Texas teams and really more than other teams in general in the league, is a developmental club in terms of we don't really go out and buy the big name Messi's and whatnot, which is cool. That's fun. But we have our own little niche, which is developing talent and taking a player from the age of 12, raising them, teaching them the game at a high level, and then promoting them to the first team so they can play professional soccer. So a lot of players over the years and currently in the current squad are from DFW. They're from Dallas. They grew up in Frisco oftentimes because they moved to be near the facility. So they're hometown guys, and it's a little bit more special being able to look at a player on the field playing at the highest level of American soccer and saying, that guy's from, right, this is his backyard, right? And being able to see the product of a lot of coaches, a lot of time and effort and money that goes into creating a professional soccer player and saying he did that all within this organization and all within this city. So it connects the club to the fans just a little bit more than a club that maybe goes out and gets 100% of their players from abroad, which, I mean, you have to get players from abroad. There's a lot of talent around the world, like we talked about earlier. So it's a good mixture of having guys who are Dallas born and raised, as well as really talented players from Croatia and Argentina and England and whatever else. Well, and also, sorry, I should add, we're also renovating the stadium. You mentioned Q2. Q2 is phenomenal. It's the best atmosphere I've ever been to in MLS. It's super cool to see that in my hometown. Super special. Dallas, of course, we built our stadium in 2005, so they had a bit of a head start on us in terms of making it modern and whatnot. Toyota Stadium was the third professional soccer stadium in MLS, specifically for soccer. So it's over the years, it hasn't been a state of the art compared to the more new stadiums, but we're changing that over the next few years. So we'll have a premier stadium once again very soon.
I cannot wait, dude. I'm so pumped for all that, the renovations happening. But going back to what you just said about development, that's really one of the things that's kept me engaged as a fan, right? So perhaps the story that maybe even casual people would know is Ricardo Pepi, right? Comes all the way up through the FC Dallas system, plays for a couple years on the top team at FC Dallas, plays very well, gets a contract to go overseas. And now, I mean, very well could be the starting number 9 for the United States in the World Cup next year. Not to mention guys like Weston McKennie, Finney, Chris Richards, and several others. I think at a couple points I've looked at some of the different pools that get called up to play for the United States, and it's 20 to 25% of the players often have ties back to the academy at FC Dallas. So would you explain first for casual fans who don't know a lot about how soccer works or MLS works, how the academy system works and what makes that so unique in professional sports? And then also just how Dallas has been so successful at producing these world-class players right out of Frisco.
Yeah, so an academy system, most soccer teams around the world, they have an academy system, which is basically a youth system where you get young players, sometimes as young as like 8 or 9 years old. And, you know, they're within your teams and your youth coaches, and you develop them to become, as they get older, to become professional players for your first team. And obviously it's like a pyramid shape. You know, you get hundreds or even thousands of players in your youth system, and it's the cream of the crop through the age groups. And eventually you'll have 3 or 4 per year that get signed to professional contracts, and 1 or 2 of those guys will go on to be mainstays in your first team. And FC Dallas was really the first MLS club to focus on that and make that part of the club's ethos. I think the academy system was founded in MLS back in 2008. And Dallas put a big onus on making that a big part of it. Part of that is because there's so much talent in Texas and in the DFW area specifically. And so basically you mentioned the 20%, 25% of U.S. national team players that have roots with FC Dallas. And that's because the club just focused on it 15 years ago now or so. And so you see, of course, if you focus on it back then, you only see the fruits of your labor 10 years on or so, because you get these players so young. And you mentioned the Ricardo Pepi example. I'll just kind of talk through his career real quick, just to give people a concrete example of what this looks like. So he's from El Paso, born in 2003, and he played in the NFC Dallas affiliate club out in El Paso. And then Lucha Gonzalez, our former academy director and who became head coach later on, he goes on a scouting trip to go check out the talent within the El Paso affiliate. He sees Ricardo Pepi, this like lanky 12-year-old who's just banging in goals. He says, let's get this guy to the academy. Pepi moves to Frisco, lives with the host family for a year or so before his family moves all the way over to get them all over here. And he goes through the age groups from U12 and on. And then once he's 15, he signs a pro contract with our reserve team, North Texas SC. That's when I met him, because I used to head up their social media and media relations. So that's how I started with FC Dallas. And then, yeah, he does well there. Scored a hat trick on his debut at 16 years old. Eventually gets signed by the first team FC Dallas. 18 months later, he's the star of the young star of MLS. He goes to the All-Star game. He's playing for the national team. He scores in Q2 in Austin for the national team.
There.
Yep, I figured that was the game you went to.
Yep.
That was a really, really cool one. I would have loved to have been there in person, but had to stay up in Dallas. And then, yeah, he does so well with FC Dallas that he goes on to sign with a club in Germany for $19-20 million. And so that's the pro pathway. You know, you get a kid at 10, 11, 12, coach them up through the youth ranks. They make their debut, and then if you know that they're good enough, they'll stay in your first team. And if they're perhaps potentially even too good, they maybe outgrow the league and then go on to the European leagues and oftentimes the men's national team. So that it's a really cool. It's my favorite part of honestly FC Dallas and pro soccer in general, is watching these guys grow into incredible professional athletes and really good people as well. So that's a really cool thing to see up close and personal.
I think it's so much more functional too, Garrett, just to compare it to other sports people are familiar with. And like, you know, football, it's recruiting out of high school into a university. And then now we've got transfer portals and NIL. and then you hope that you make the NFL. And if you don't make the NFL, there's really not a great pro option unless you just want to pay for like no money. And, you know, basketball, you've got the AAU system, or baseball, you've got select. But even that is all kind of expensive or unregulated in some ways. And then it's again college and transfer portals and NIL and will I make the pros? Whereas, you know, with soccer, you know, if you're good enough at 16 to play for the senior team, like you've already been within that structure for so long, you just get promoted. It feels like such a better pathway for a young athlete. And speaking of getting promoted at a young age, that carries me into, I got to be honest, I'm wearing my here, I'll spin real quick. I'm wearing my Lucho Acosta kit today, right here.
Very nice, very nice.
So that's the new one for this season, right? Lucho Acosta, of course, the big offseason signing, one of the best players ever to play in MLS, veteran midfielder coming over to play for FC Dallas this season. It's been fun to watch, but my favorite FC Dallas player ever was Jesus Ferreira.
Yep.
The number 9 that finally parted ways with the club after his dad played so well for the club, and then Ferreira came through that academy system you just talked about. So it's been a crazy offseason, this past offseason for FC Dallas fans. You lost your captain, Paul Arriola. You lost Jesus Ferreira, lost Nkase Tafari, one of the best young defenders in the league. Head coaching change, Peter Quill coming up from that academy system to kind of become the head coach of the senior team. Then you sign one of the most exciting veteran playmakers in the league. And now Dallas is sitting 9th in the table in the West. Of course, a long season to go, all summer into the fall. What do you expect from this team going into the summer? How do you think they're looking, feeling? What's the energy, and what's next for this team as we get into the summer months?
Yeah, we're definitely still in the figure it out phase. There's no doubt about it. Like you said, a new head coach in Eric Quill, who coached Ricardo Pepi at North Texas SC, our reserve team, back in 2019. And then he went off to be an assistant coach in MLS. Then he coached in the second division, did very well there. And then we hired him back to be the first team head coach. But not just that, a complete overhaul of the first team squad. There's 16 players left, 16 new ones came in, which in soccer is, that's unheard of. It's your entire starting 11 almost. And because soccer is such an involved game in terms of teamwork and understanding, and with 11 players on the field, having that understanding what the next person is going to do with the ball is so important that we're definitely still trying to figure things out. The chemistry is certainly not where it needs to be. But we're getting results that we probably don't expect. We've done very well on the road. We were unbeaten on the road until last weekend. It was a tough one, I will say, lost 5-0. But before that,
tell the audience about that one. Yeah.
Before that, we had the best road record in the league, which was very unexpected because we've been very rough on the road for the previous couple of seasons. But we're trying to figure things out at home for sure still. So it's a wait and see kind of thing. Basically, we're changing tactics and lineups game to game right now, trying to see what sticks, what works. Eric Quill is trying to figure out, the best profile of the players, their best positions, who plays well with who. So we're all figuring things out as we go. So I'd say, we're only 2.5, 3 months into the season right now. It's a 9-month season. There's plenty of time to figure it out. So I say, come August, which sounds a long time from now, but come August, that's where you kind of know who you are. Oftentimes I'll say that for any team, the first third of the MLS regular season doesn't really matter. You just can't get too far away because oftentimes the teams who do well in the playoffs are the ones who get hot late in the regular season. So plenty of time for that to happen. And plenty of time for Eric Quill to figure out his best 11, his best tactical formation, and best outlook for all the different pieces that he has. Because, it was an absolutely crazy offseason with all the chopping and changing that happened.
It was so funny. My process as a fan was I was like, as pieces were getting shipped out or not re-signed and new coach, I was like, okay, I can deal. Ferreira goes to Seattle, which, by the way, the fact that he went to Seattle just made it even worse for me. I was like, I can't do that. Oh my. And then I was pretty sad. And then we signed this guy.
Yep.
And I said, okay, there was a plan. We have a playmaker. That's awesome, Garrett. Well, hey, man, thanks for your time. This has been awesome. By the way, if you're watching this and you've enjoyed hearing from Garrett, that story about Ricardo Pepi is just one of many. He's done some great work on the other guy you need to research. We just don't have time to keep talking about it. Is Bernard Kamungo. Of course, his story, one of my favorite in all of sports in the last decade. Just a phenomenal one. So, Garrett, where can people find your content? How can they support you and the team and maybe find some more of these stories as they investigate getting into MLS?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'd encourage people to go just check out FC Dallas on social media. It's at FC Dallas on all the major platforms. All my work eventually goes through there. But if you want to see what I do personally, on my Twitter account at Garrett Melcer, just first name, last name. That's GarrettMelcer. I tweet about the team. I cover the team as a first team reporter as well, in addition to the other stuff I do behind the scenes. And also, if you want a week by week, more in-depth FC Dallas coverage, please go ahead and check out the FC Dallas Agenda podcast on all the major podcast platforms. We do game recaps, game previews, player interviews every week, and get into the nitty gritty of how the team is doing. So right now it's a very up and down show because the team is very up and down, but we're fans ourselves. So we can, sometimes we get caught up in the day-to-day of it as well. But yeah, thank you so much for the time and really appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. Garrett, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, man. Well, hey, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Pete Sousa Show. Thanks so much to Pete for swinging by from Oklahoma City. Check out ESPN Plus Big 12 softball tournament to hear Pete calling those games. Thanks so much to Shehan, Jeyarajah, and Garrett Melcer for stopping by. It was great having those guys in for conversations today. Thanks, as always, to our sponsors, especially Slovaceks. Don't drive through West without stopping and saying hey to Slovaceks, and make sure you tell them the Pete Sousa Show sent you. My name's Scotty Swingler. I'll be with you again tomorrow from Waco. This is the Pete Sousa Show.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level when we shut down to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We are Rogue Media Sports.